What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of the Off the Ball podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron. And I got a special show today. Back after, I think a week and a half or 2 weeks I've been out, no Off the Ball podcast, but we're back and we got a lot to talk about in the National Basketball Association. So I have a second, a returning guest, second time on the podcast. You've listened to this man before. We talked a lot of Memphis Grizzlies, I think, before the season, right? So happy to have my guy, Francis Carlota. He is a man of many jobs now. I mean, Francis, I think you got a job everywhere. You all over the place, man. You do stuff for us.
Working.
Yeah. You do stuff for SB Nation. Covering the Grizzlies. Now you're covering the Memphis Tigers and college basketball.
Yes,
so you just announced that I think a few weeks ago. So congrats on that. So Francis,
thank you.
Welcome back to the pod, my brother.
Thank you, man. It's good to be here. It's always good to talk hoops with you, man. You're one of my favorite people out there in terms of covering the NBA. And it's just a pleasure to be here. Let's get into it, man. I'm pumped. I haven't done my podcast, The Up and Under, in a minute because people have been busy. I got married recently, so we're gonna get back into that.
Congratulations!
Thank you. So I haven't had a chance to talk NBA in a minute, so I'm pumped. Let's do it.
Yes, let's get into it. And before we get right into it, this show is brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek, the number one place for all your ticket needs. Make sure to go to SeatGeek.com, hit the promo code Off the Ball Network, and get $20 off your first purchase. $20 off your first purchase. We got a bunch of stuff going. We got bowl season. We got college basketball. We got the NBA. Go
hockey,
whatever, lacrosse, whatever, any sport you want to go to. You want to, Francis? You want to go take your lovely wife, your newly wife, out to a play or an opera or broad, whatever. Hit the promo code Off the Ball Network, all caps, and get $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek.com. Your number one place for all your ticket needs. All right, Francis, let's get right into it. There's a lot going on in the association, and I want to dive into the West. And you cover the Memphis Grizzlies, so and they're out west, and the West is very interesting this year. Very interesting to say the least. It is the wild west, right now. I mean, if you go on a 2-game losing streak, you can go from first place to 8th place just like that. That's just how crazy. I don't remember a time where the West was this wide open. Usually we have a few teams that were like, okay, those are the two, the top tier teams, and then it's kind of everyone else. But this year, I mean, 1 through 10, I mean, anyone can beat each other in a 7-game series. Like, it's just really nothing guaranteed at all out west. So just give me your thoughts right now on the Western Conference and just how it is just all over the place this year.
I mean, look at the standings right now, and it's excuse me, to me, it's just a lot of surprises, but also some sleeping giants that we're kind of forgetting about because they're lower in the standings. They're not healthy. You look at the Warriors, who are in 11th place. They're 15 and 18. Steph has been hurt recently. Their bench unit is a disaster, but their starting 5 is still incredible. And when Steph comes back healthy, when that happens, who wants to face Golden State in a playoff series? Raise your hand. Nobody. No one's going to raise their hand.
Nope.
No, absolutely not. So that every team, as you said, 1 through 8, or I guess at this point 1 through 10 with the play-in tournament.
It's 4 games.
So anybody can beat anybody, like you said. And in terms of the surprises, the Trailblazers, the Jazz, the Sacramento Kings, they're hanging on there, man. They're
the Sacramento Kings. They're not the Sacramento Queens anymore.
That's right. They're hanging in there, man. They have young talent. Like I like the Sabonis trade for Sacramento and him and De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox has been fantastic this year. And you look at Portland, Damian Lillard's looking healthier, looking back to Dame Dollar that we're used to seeing from him. And Utah, I talked about Utah on my podcast when they were first in the Western Conference for a period of time. They've regressed to the mean a little bit, and they fell back, but they're still 3 games out of first place and still winning games. They're still doing a really, really surprisingly good job this year. And then to go back to a sleeping giant, the Clippers are 5th, a game and a half back of first place. And Kawhi Leonard, Chris, Kawhi Leonard is he's coming back.
getting
He's
healthier.
coming back. He's getting healthier. He's starting to play real basketball again. He's starting to play 30 minutes a game, 31, 32 minutes a game. And he's starting to look like the Claw. And I'm going to tell you what, man. You said before the season started, we did the podcast together. You picked the Clippers to win it all. I mean, look, they're fifth, but they're a game and a half back of first place. And Kawhi is looking real.
Yeah.
So,
and the minutes are up. The minutes are up for him, and he's. I think
minutes are up.
30 minutes in the 5 of the last 6 games. So, and we're seeing some of that old Kawhi back.
Yeah, and I haven't even gotten to the top 4 of the West yet. You know what I'm saying? Like it's such a loaded conference. I think the top half of the East, I think, is better than the top half of the West.
Yeah.
But the depth of the Western Conference is impressive. It's really impressive to see how deep the league is, how deep this conference is. And like I said, any team can win a playoff series, a game on any given night. So what are your thoughts on the West? I haven't got to my Grizzlies yet, but I want to slow down a little.
Yeah, no, it's the wild, wild West. It's just to think about it. 1 through 6 right now. Non-play-in is a 2-game gap. So, like I said before, a 2-game losing streak, you can go from the 1 seed to being in the 6 seed. 3-game losing streak, you might be, out and playing in the play-in. So it's just that close out West, and I don't remember a time where, the West was just so wide open where it's literally like I don't know who's like if you said, all right, give me who you think's going to come out the West right now. It's like I don't know who's the healthiest. Like at the end, like I really don't know. I can't give you a prediction right now. Out East, like you said, it's top heavy.
It's top heavy.
And Brooklyn has played better of late. I mean, there was a murder in Brooklyn. We saw that. It was an absolute murder at the Barclays Center. I put up 91 points. Yeah, it was. That was
like everyone's murdering Golden State right now.
Yeah, hopefully, the Knicks put it on them, and then they went to the Barclays Center, and I thought their performance against the Knicks was bad. They said we could top that bad performance at the Barclays Center, and almost gave a 100-piece at the half.
Half.
But so Brooklyn, do we put Brooklyn up? Philly's trying to play better, but it's Milwaukee and Boston's a little. They're slumped up. They're slumping a little bit, but they have like 4 teams out East where you're like, okay, those are teams that they're probably going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals, right? Whatever combination, that's probably going to be in the East. Where out West is like, I can't tell you who's going to be in the Western Conference Finals. It could be any combination of these 8 teams. Like it wouldn't surprise me, any combination of these 8 teams. And I think that's good. I think that's very good. It's healthy for the league. It's more teams in it competing, which what the NBA wants. We have bad teams, but even if Francis, the bad teams like Orlando, they just had like a 5-6 game winning streak, and they're
7-3 in their last 10.
Yeah. And Detroit and even though Cade's out for the season, Detroit. So like even the bad teams, relatively are competing. So it's very healthy. I think the league is in good shape right now, and just the battles we're going to see out West, and it's like Dallas is right now as a 9th seed, and I had mentioned Dallas before the season in my preview. Like I'm not high on Dallas at all. I don't like this roster at all. I think it's very tough to build around Luka. It's kind of like how LeBron is, but the difference is with LeBron, he could play off the ball, and because he's such athletic, he can just start cutting, and you get throw oops and all that. And with Luka, you can't do that. So it's very limited. It's very tough. I know people like they want to give him another superstar, but it's like, and I mentioned this on a show I did a couple of days ago. I was like, okay, you give him another superstar, and like, Luka is best when he has the ball in his hand. Now you take the ball out of his hand. How good of a player is that version of Luka Doncic now without the ball in his hand? It's probably nowhere near Luka Doncic with the ball. So like the gap in that is very big, So like who is the right fit? Do you think about getting another star, or do you try to go after someone that's maybe not a star level, but that can a couple tiers below. It's tough, but the West is it's fun. It's fun seeing out West and all these teams. Minnesota's still in it, and
Yeah.
they're left for dead. So it's very intriguing. What we're seeing
Yeah.
out West because everyone's essentially in it. OKC's still in it. And they're
Yeah.
fighting. SGA is carrying them and all that. Like I said, the Warriors are
He's
still
been
in,
awesome.
even though they look for dead, but it's fun out West. It really is fun out West. I know, you're Memphis. Memphis has it in it every night. They got a battle, and so let's go into the Grizzlies. You guys have dealt with some
Sure.
injuries for sure,
Yeah.
and but you guys are still staying afloat. Number 2, you're tied for number 1 seed with Denver right now. Just
Yep.
how are we feeling about Memphis right now? Bane's out, obviously. Hopefully he gets him. I mean, he was on a roll, man. I mean, he still probably should be consideration for an all-star, but he looked like he was a lock, all-star.
Yeah,
he
looked like a lock.
He's great.
He looked like a lock. He looked like a most improved player candidate again. Last year, like you see that John Morant, he literally put his most improved award in Desmond Bane's house. He was like, "I don't want this. This is your award." That was really cool. But he's in consideration for it again. And I think if his all-star case, and I tweeted this yesterday, his all-star case is not shut. When he comes back healthy and he stays at the same level he was at before the injury, then he has a legit chance to make the all-star game. He might even be a reserve lock for sure. Jaren Jackson Jr.'s all-star case is still there. He's the wild part about Triple J is he's played like no minutes. He hasn't played that many games. He just came back from injury probably just a few weeks ago. I'm trying to pull up his stats right now just to get exactly how many games he's played because it's not that many.
14.
He's only played 14 games.
14 games.
14 games, Chris. He hasn't played that many minutes, and he still has the foul trouble issue where you'll watch a Grizzlies game, and you're like, where's Jaren Jackson Jr.? Oh, he's on the bench. Oh, wait, he's still on the bench. Like because he just gets dumb fouls, and he's so big, and he has a problem with. He wants to block everything, which I guess is a problem and a good thing, right? When you want to block everything, you're going after every shot. You're being aggressive. That's why he averages like a million blocks a game. He averages 3.2, but you know what I mean? He averages a lot of blocks a game because he goes after everything. But the catch-20, is it catch-21 or catch-22?
Catch-22, I think.
Catch-22,
catch-22.
The catch-22 of that is he gets called for a lot of fouls because he's trying to block everything.
Aggressive,
he needs to find that happy, and we've been saying this for years, right, about Jaren Jackson Jr. He needs to find that happy medium of picking his spots of when to go after blocks or when to just stay tall, stay big, stay vertical. So once he finds that and he cuts down the foul rate, he stays on the floor longer, I think the numbers he's going to put up will be all-star level numbers. And he's in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation, if not a favorite at this moment in time. He has a legit all-star case as well. And, a lot of this is based on winning. The Grizzlies are winning a lot of games. They're 19-11. They're second in the Western Conference, but really they're tied for first. So, I mean, hey, I feel great. They've lost 2 in a row. They lost to Denver last night. 2 nights ago, they lost to Oklahoma City, which was a really weird game. It's like they got to Oklahoma City and they just were flat. They just had zero energy. I mean, the Thunder didn't even have Shea. I don't even think they had Josh Giddey, but the Grizzlies were flat. They lost. Whatever, it happens. It's the NBA. But they're still 7-3 in the last 10. And if you told me, Chris, before the season started, and we did the season preview podcast together, man, if you told me that they would be 19-11 after 30 games, they would be tied for first in the Western Conference, and Desmond Bane has missed a good chunk of time. John Morant has missed games here and there. Jaren Jackson obviously missed the start of the season. If you would tell me that they'd be tied for first, 19-11 after 30 games, I'd be like, oh, that's incredible. That's that's a miracle, honestly, because so many people were already counting the Grizzlies out early on in the season, but for the early part of the season because of the Jaren Jackson Jr. injury. Well-known NBA journalists were saying, the Grizzlies, they're kind of like a sneaky play-in team, maybe 6th or 5th, but no, they're tied for first. They're only second because of a tiebreaker because they lost to Denver 2 nights ago. This is a really good basketball team that, when healthy, can win an NBA title this year. And I
Yep.
think we need to start recognizing that as NBA fans, NBA media people, they can win the NBA title now. And like, are there moves to be made trade wise? Yes. And we're going to talk about trades later on, but they may not need to make the moves. And I wouldn't fault them if they trusted their guys, they trusted their core, they trusted the guys they drafted who's been in their system for albeit a short period of time, but are still a part of the team and knows the system. I wouldn't blame them if they just stood pat. But also, I kind of hope they add a little something to really solidify their spot. Excuse me, solidify their spot as an NBA title contender. Because I'd say the Grizzlies are, like I said, they are very much so a contender, but it's still, to me, it's still Milwaukee, Boston, and Cleveland, and they're all in the East in terms of being the three best teams in the NBA. But like you said, anybody can come out of the West. The Grizzlies are right there as one of the best teams in the West, and they can win the Western Conference. And Chris, once you make it to the NBA Finals, all bets are off, man.
Mm-hmm.
Just put who's the best in the 7-game series. That's it. Records don't matter. Whoever's healthy, like none of that matters. Yep. Just be healthy, and if the Grizzlies are healthy and they're in the NBA Finals, yeah, they can beat Milwaukee, they can beat Boston, they can beat Cleveland. So, as a Grizzlies fan, as someone who loves my team, who loves my city, I'm ecstatic. We couldn't be in a better spot.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So who out West has surprised you, whether good or bad? Give me a team out West that's really surprised you.
I mean, it's got to be Sacramento, right? It has to be Sacramento. I don't think any of us expected this from the Kings. They're playing really fun to watch basketball. De'Aaron Fox is having a fantastic year. Sabonis's numbers are a little bit down, but I think it's really because of usage. He's just not. He's not the focal point of.
He doesn't have the ball anymore. Like he did in Indiana.
Right. They're not running the offense through him because Sabonis was like a mini Jokic at Indiana. They would just throw Sabonis the ball in the high post or just run the offense through Sabonis.
He was used the way like the Knicks used Julius Randle.
There you go. That's a great reference because that's exactly how they did it. But now playing with De'Aaron Fox, a primary ball handler, he's allowed Sabonis to kind of just play more within himself, and he's still putting up very efficient numbers. And De'Aaron Fox has been fantastic. They're a really sneaky good team. I mean, they're fun to watch. They're fast. I mean, they're third in pace in the NBA. I mean, they are rapid. They are so quick.
And they got 6 guys averaging 12 plus points a game. So.
Exactly. Yep. Like they just have a lot of talent. They're a lot of really good dudes, and they've definitely stuck up on me for sure. What about you?
Out West, I would say Portland.
Yeah,
I had Portland. I had Portland out for dead. I didn't. I just thought I didn't. Not that I didn't get the moves they made because they're trying to win, but I just thought it wouldn't be worth it, just be stuck. And they still could be just stuck in the middle right now, right? It still could be the case, but they're competing. I mean, 17 and 15 right now. They're the 7th seed right now. They'll be in the play-in, but like we mentioned before, a win streak here, and they could be top 4 seed. So, they've really impressed. But I think I underestimated. Not that Dame's not good, but I underestimated what a healthy Dame, his impact can provide for a team when he's healthy. He wasn't healthy last year.
I don't think you underestimated it. We just haven't seen it in a long time. So it's like it hasn't been at the forefront of our minds what a healthy Damian Lillard is. We just haven't seen it. And he's back healthy, and he's Dame. He's what we expected.
Yeah, and he's missed some games this year, but you see guys like Anthony Simons take that next step, and I think that's the number one reason why I think they traded CJ was to open up Anthony Simons, because they saw like that he can be unlocked once CJ's gone, and CJ was going to block him because they play the same position. And I mean, they're very similar players, but they saw that in Anthony Simons, and they're like, okay, we need to unlock this kid, because this kid can be, someone that has a little bit more upside than CJ. Like CJ is solid as solid. You're going to get 20, and that veteran leadership, but Simons brings something that's a little bit more dynamic in his game. But like Jeremy Grant's been solid for them.
He's been
You
very
know,
good for him. Yeah.
Nurkic, Josh Hart. We see some things from Shaden Sharp, who they took this year in the draft and all that.
Right.
Even Winslow has been solid for them on defense. So, and that's another thing.
Yeah.
Their defense has been relatively good the whole year. So that's definitely surprised me. Their play so far. I had them, I think, the 11th seed, coming into the season. So, so far they have definitely, risen up and played some solid basketball. A little losing streak right now, but, for the
Yeah.
most part, I mean, and you could put Utah in there too. Who the hell you thought
Yeah.
Utah?
Utah. Look, like I said, Sacramento, Portland, Utah, all three of those teams, they're hanging in there, man. And no one expected it. Everyone thought Utah was in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes, like the leader of the tankathon. But no, they're playing really good basketball. Kenneth Cotterill's wannabe, how do I say this properly? Yeah, probably like maybe wannabe boyfriend, possibly Laurie Markkinen. Like he's been hooping. He's been playing incredible.
He's been really good. He's been really good, and it shows you that there's some guys that they're just not in the right system, and you can take down their game. But when you get in the system where you're allowed to just open up and just be free flowing, shows you there's guys that have a lot more in their game than we've seen. And Laurie was a guy we kind of counted out as, all right, he is what he is. He's going to be 18, 19 a game maybe. And but we're seeing a lot more, and he's an all-star consideration this year. And he's played really good basketball. And, Utah's, in the playoff hunt right now. And it's at one point they were the number one seed, only 3 games out now, but it's been surprising. Let's go out east. Who give me a surprise out east.
All right, out east. I guess Indiana's been better than I thought they would.
Yeah, I had them dead last out east.
Yeah, they're definitely better than I thought they would be. I remember doing like a quick segment about we did a most interesting team segment for the Up and Under podcast. Not this year, but we did this year, but did the year before as well. And a friend of ours had the Pacers as one of the most interesting teams. And I'm like, are you kidding? They're probably the least interesting team in the NBA. There's nothing intriguing about the Pacers. But this year, I mean, look, Tyrese Halliburton's been the headlines recently. A little feud with Wally Zerbiak, right?
That was wild. But
it was just weird, right? It kind of came out of nowhere.
Watching the game, and he says that, I'm like, whoa, what did I just miss? I have to rewind
slow
it.
Down a second. Yeah, right.
Like, what happened? That was very odd, but because he was so passionate about it, and it's like, what did Hallie do to you, bro? Like, I know Hallie had said some things like he's gonna make the Knicks pay, or like teams pay for not drafting him, and I did want him to be a Knick, so like I'm not mad at that, but that he's mad at that. I'm mad at that that they didn't take him, but it was just weird. That was weird. It was a weird thing that just blurred out, but it got headlines for sure because it's still matriculating in the internet.
You hit the nail on the head by saying it caught you off guard. It caught, I think, everybody off guard.
Why are my whole game watching? I was like, why did Wally say that? Like, and I had to go Google like if there's beef that I don't know about, like between them, and it was just weird.
Like I said, he was so passionate about it, and it's like how I get about boneless chicken wings in quotes, just chicken wings.
We're not going to do that, Francis. We're not going to disrespect the greatest type of wing of all time.
I'm going to leave the podcast.
We will not disrespect the greatest type of wing of all time. The chicken. It is a wing.
Oh boy.
It's just boneless.
I'm
science.
just gonna.
It's science.
All
we
right.
know this is facts. So
I'm just going to get back into Tyrese Halliburton before
Hopefully the Hoopers are watching this. It wouldn't. We don't need the Hoopers. They might leave.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, the Pacers have definitely shocked people. Tyrese Halliburton. I think we knew how good he was coming from Sacramento. Obviously, a part of that Sabonis trade. There were obviously divided opinions about that trade because of how good Halliburton was for Sacramento. But I don't think we expected him to have this great of an impact in terms of winning. Like he is a massive reason why the Pacers are 500 in the play-in tournament and way better than I think that all of us thought they would be Another team. Let's get sad for a second. A team that I'm disappointed in them, but I kind of saw this coming because I wasn't that high on them going into this year. It's the Miami Heat. I mean, being 7th in the East, 6.5 games out of first place, also 500. They have a lot of injuries. We're not going to sugarcoat that. They've got a lot of injuries, which have definitely cost this team. To key players, Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, a lot of role guys, a lot of bench guys who are very important to their depth. So I get it. I understand why they're not a top 5, top 4, whatever team in the Eastern Conference and one of those elite. But even entering this year, I still didn't see it. I love Bam Adebayo, but Kyle Lowry is old. Let's just be real. He's old. He's injury prone. He's not the guy to be a starting point guard on a championship contending team. Jimmy Butler's fantastic, but I think compared to a lot of other NBA people, I'm not nearly as big of a Jimmy Butler fan as a lot of people, especially my co-host on the Open Under. Yeah, my co-host on the podcast, Grant Heckinger, loves Jimmy Butler, and I totally get why people do. I just don't. I just don't love Jimmy Butler. He's really good. He impacts winning. He's a dog defensively, but no, I can't. That's all. He's not for me in terms of being the best player on a championship.
I'm the same way. Yeah.
He's just not for me. So I'm disappointed in the Heat, but also I kind of saw this coming. I kind of saw them being where they at in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and I had them, I think, top 5 seed, and I wasn't crazy about them, but maybe I fell into the whole Heat culture that they'll figure it out and all that. Because culture. That whole and that's another thing I can't stand is Heat culture.
Yeah, everyone take a shot because we talked about Heat culture. That should be like
Heat culture. If I hear that
podcast.
one more time, like, I'm sick of that phrase Heat culture and all that. But
there we go. That's like 4 shots for all the listeners already.
Yeah, like it's just too much now. But like, I don't know why I thought that, because I had a feeling that this could be a very down year, but I still just I figured they would figure it out or make a move potentially, but I don't like this Heat team at all. I think they're one of those teams that maybe have to make a move or figure out their direction because they're getting older. Duncan Robinson contract is dreadful.
That makes me sad too, man.
I was surprised Pat Riley would go that route, especially a guy who's just really one dimensional. And yes, that one thing he does is important and all that, but I think we've learned our lesson with giving guys who are just shooters, giving them 80 plus mil. David Bertans, Joe Harris, Duncan Robinson. I think the NBA should learn from those 3 bad contracts that, okay, yes, what they do is special, but we can't give these guys 80-90 million dollars. Like, let's stop doing that, because that's what they do is important, but if that's neutralized, now we have a useless player. And that's why Washington was like, oh my God, Bertans can't even shoot the 3 anymore. He's useless. And same thing with Duncan. Like he's how many DMPs he has, how many, single digit minute games he has this year, or 10, 11 minute games. Like it's a bad contract. And, so, Miami's in a tough situation. They don't have they're not a very athletic team, they don't have a lot of talent, and it's Jimmy Butler and Bam, and is that a recipe to win a championship? It looked good in the bubble a few years ago, but that may have just been that one run they had in them, and that's it. And you got that run, and that was it. They used all that energy, but they've definitely disappointed. But like the Pacers, like we mentioned before, the Pacers, I'd had them dead last in the East, and I was on the same boat. Like I thought Halliburton would be a most improved candidate for sure. I just didn't think the team around them was good enough to win. I thought they would probably be in tank mode, but we're sitting here, and I think what are they, 7 seed or something like that? 8 seed right now.
8 seed. Yep.
They're playing really, really good basketball and all that, and there's team in Chicago has been, and that's the next thing I want to talk to you is we got teams that are just that on paper supposed to be good teams. Like we look at Toronto and we look at Chicago, and there's a lot of teams in that middle area. Dallas, Minnesota. These teams are in the middle, and do they punt and sell at the deadline, or do they try to buy and try to stay in it? And Toronto, they just excuse me.
Yeah.
They were just on a losing streak, and they want the Garden because Pascal, Kobe, Siakam just went absolutely crazy at the Garden last night and dropped I think 52 on us.
Yeah.
But and it shows you, like, if this Toronto team clicks, like, they can be still a threat. But what do those teams do? Chicago, the Washingtons, and all that, like that. You hear that they want to, contend and all that, and want to, push for playoffs, but their record says otherwise. Like, you are what your record is. And so what do those teams do right now?
Yeah, we've in the Optimal Number chat, we've talked a lot about the Raptors. And I really, again, shout out to Kenneth, shout out to our fellow Canadian who's not a Raptors fan, which is
he's anti-Canada.
Yeah.
He's anti-Canada for Canadian.
I agree. But yeah, we've been talking about Toronto. Obviously, OG Anunoby's been in the news recently with trade discussions for him. Is he actually truly available? And if he is, Masai wants like a Donovan Mitchell level trade package for OG and stuff like that. The Raptors are still in the news because of the players they have that teams would just absolutely fall over and fall in love with, like an OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam. What team would really love to have Pascal Siakam as like a number 2 on a championship contending team? But yeah, in terms of what type of direction that these teams that you mentioned that what they should take, I mean, for me, Chris, I am team tank. I am team blow it up. I hate teams who are in the middle. It's the worst spot to be, in my opinion, in all of sports, is the middle. And if you don't have a clear direction to get to the top, then you just got to, then for me, you have to figure out a way to get draft equity and to open up cap space. Now, there are different ways to tank, quote unquote, but I think the best and most efficient way to do it is just, like I said, to get draft equity and to open up cap space and build for the future. Now, I think that idea, that stigma of tanking has been it's been a hot topic in the NBA and sports in general. But that to me is just smart team management. If you don't have a path to truly contending, and when I say truly contending, I mean for an NBA title, to at least a conference final. If you don't have a path to that, then what are we doing if you're not trying to build for the future? If you're not trying to open up cap space to fill out, to get better players, to fill out your roster, or even attract a superstar free agent or a star free agent? And what are you doing if you're hanging on to players who have real draft equity, who have real value to another team that has the picks, that has the young players, that has the good expiring contracts, that allows you to open up cap space? Why aren't you doing that? And I do believe for Toronto, 14 and 18, there's been a lot of chatter, a lot of buzz saying that they're the next team to really want to have a wholesale, to have a straight up clean house, have a full fire sale. And it wouldn't surprise me. I think they should. We've talked about, again, in the chat, about the idea of positionless basketball, whether or not that's a farce or anything. One thing's for sure. I do like positionless basketball, but one thing's for sure, Chris, you need to have a primary ball handler. You need to have someone to start and initiate an offense, whether or not that guy is 7 feet tall or the guy is 6'1". It doesn't matter. You need somebody. And the Raptors had that guy. Fred VanVleet was fantastic last season. He was an all-star. And I still like Fred VanVleet a lot. But as we talked about in our chat, he's regressed this year. And the Raptors, they want to play this free-flowing, positionless style of offense, but they don't have a ball handler to get them into the right sets, to initiate offense. They don't have that. They're trying to do what Penny Hardaway, not to go back to my Memphis Tigers, they're trying to do what Penny Hardaway tried to do last year
of
with
course.
Imani Bates as point guard. What? Like, and initially, like, I drank the Kool-Aid. I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's fun. He's this dynamic, open floor player who showed shades of being able to pass. He's so tall and he's fast. I drank the Kool-Aid. I loved it, but it did not work, Chris.
No, that's not Imani's game at all.
It's not because you need a point guard. And, you know, again, the sidetrack, Penny has one. He has Kendrick Davis. He's fantastic. But the Raptors don't have one. And, you know, the Bulls, they had Lonzo. But Lonzo's hurt. And that makes me sad, man, because I'm a Lonzo believer. I really want him to be really good. And he was great before he got hurt. But now the Bulls don't have a point guard. They don't have that guy to get them into their offense to really help DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, allow them to get into their flow. I think they should blow it up. So that's not the long-winded answer to your questions. Yes, I think they should try and trade these guys and get equity, and they're suitors. I mean, we're going to talk about trades. There are teams who would want these guys. So I think they should really. It sucks, especially for the Bulls. You know, I love Zach Lowe. I listen to his podcast all the time. Hello, Zach. But the Bulls just chose their lane of contending just a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
they just chose to be.
Yep.
They had their path. They like people's like, oh, I'm totally echoing Zach, but I agree. It's like, you know, people saying that, oh, Chicago, they should just pick a lane. What do you mean? They did. And I went on my podcast talking about how I like the move because it helps them be good. And they haven't been good for a long time, and they're finally good. But now it's unfortunately coming back in my face, coming back in Chicago's face. And it's tough to see because Lonzo got hurt. And that's really the key here, man.
Yeah.
That's the real.
Yeah, because they don't have a floor general right now. And
they don't.
You know, not having that floor general has really affected them, in my opinion, and putting Zach and DeRozan in the right spots and move, you know, playing more of a faster, more up tempo game. I think that's really affected them, and that I love the Lonzo Ball signing when they had him, and they were really doing things when Lonzo was there and healthy, and Caruso was healthy, and
they were fun.
Yeah. Once Lonzo got hurt, and then Caruso got hurt, with the Grayson Allen play last year, they really took a nosedive, and then they made the playoffs, but I think they lost in 5, and it just this year it just hasn't clicked because not having Lonzo, having that floor guy is really affecting it. And you've seen, like you mentioned, if you don't got a point guard, it's tough.
It's hard, man.
It's really, or at least someone who can initiate the offense. You know,
you're a Knicks fan, you know. Like,
yeah, I mean, we got Jay. We finally got a point guard. Like I've been a point guard screaming for years, and you know, I you know how they went about it was kind of like, all right, you know, Brunson. They thought he was like Kevin Durant or something. It was
right.
If you just take away like how they went about it, you know, they needed a point guard. They addressed it, and you've seen their play this year. I mean, you know, they just came off of an 8-game win streak, you know, 7-game win streak, and you know, they're playing really good basketball at the moment. And because they have a floor general, had we not had the floor general, this season may be the opposite. And it's one loss is bad for the Knicks, let alone if this is a 13-19 season at the moment. And it was bad before we got in the win streak. Fans were, you know, calling for people's heads and all that. So it's when you don't have that floor general, it's really shows. And you know, look at, we talk about Memphis last year. Ja goes out, and you got Jones there to fill in, and you have he's definitely not John Morant, of course, but he brings incredible. That he's still a really good backup, and that's that was a great pickup by you guys to retain him. You know, but you just having that guy that can initiate is very important, and Chicago doesn't have that, and they picked their lane. They knew what direction they wanted to go to. You know, they traded for Vooch, and they traded picks and all that could have helped them. You know, and Wendell Carter and all that, but they went direction, and injuries unfortunately has hampered that. You know, even LaVine has the knee, came back from the knee and all that, so he has been banged up, and Patrick Williams hasn't kind of lived up to his potential. So I don't know if they're gonna fully blow it up. But you know, it's tough for them. It's a tough situation for them. You know, especially with the Lonzo injury.
Let me ask you a question about your Knicks, because as we know, 8-game win streak. They went from 10-14 or 10-13 to 8-14. So
Mm-hmm.
they're right there.
Yeah.
They're 4.5 back from Milwaukee, couple games back of Brooklyn for home court advantage. I mean, they're now an Eastern Conference contender, especially they're 2 games up of Miami for the play-in spot. But again, like you said, before this win streak, people were calling for Tibbs' head. They were really down. I mean, you're as much as in Knicks Twitter as anybody. So man, the pulse of the fandom. But now I'm sure it's all peaches and cream. It's like,
Oh
let's
yeah,
go. Like,
it
everyone's
flips
probably
real quick,
really
and then it
right.
flipped again
It's
last night
fast,
when they lost.
right? It gets sad. Yep, that's how it goes, man. It's the life of being an NBA fan. But I'm curious because as a Knicks fan, as a knowledgeable basketball fan, Chris, is this real? Should you try, and we're going to talk about trades, should you try and get OG from Toronto? You got young guys, you got picks. Do you try and make a real move to kind of vault yourself, or do you not really believe that this team can really contend, that this is real? And like, no, let's not do that yet. Let's just ride this. Let's ride this out. Let's get the most we can for Brunson, Julius Randle, this core. We love Quentin Grimes. Emmanuel quickly has been fantastic. Robinson's protecting the rim like we know he can. This is still a good team, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves. We don't need to throw all of our eggs into one trade basket yet. Let's wait. Or, like I said, or do you go for it? How do you feel?
That's been the hot topic with you hear a lot of trades now. Levine, there's OG, and you have heard that OG, the Knicks, you were looking at OG before the win streak. We're talking to what called Toronto for OG and all that. It would all depend. It is tough because the win streak, I think it was real, but you got to go deep and see who they played, and I think that factors. Sure. But they still won 8 in a row, and that's something. Sure. The defense went. They only I think in that win streak, only 2 teams scored over 100 points, and I think all but one game, I believe, they scored over 100. Their starting 5 is one of the best starting 5s in that span. Like I said, the defense overall throughout the board, 3-point percentage and all that, relatively good. I think they're number 1 in rebounding through around that stretch. So there's a lot of good things from that. But you see when they play Toronto, what happened, and without and Quentin Grimes missing, that it just went out of whack once they missed that one guy. But if you're Toronto, Toronto's not going to just take, just not going to give away OG for nothing. They're going to want some of your pieces. They're going to want Quentin Grimes and all that. Like, we can't just trade Derrick Rose, Cam Reddish, and some second round picks and think that's what because I've seen that. And it's like, well, they're not going to take guys we're not playing for OG Anunoby, who can possibly be a 20+ point scorer if he's the second option on a team. Yeah. So it would depend on the move, but I think they should stay put because I still think they're still going to be in that 6 to 8 range over at the end of the day. I still think that's where their ceiling is, and I think they have to reassess a lot of things in the offseason, what direction they want to go, because I don't think this team currently constructed is going to be a potential championship team, which every that should be your direction. Like, of course, we want to get to a championship level. Are we that with this current team? I don't think so. And I was one of the few people who would said, let's trade RJ, Obi, and IQ or something like that, and some picks, and go get Donovan Mitchell if that's the deal. Not the crazy like 7 first-round picks. I was not for that, but like something reasonable. If you include RJ and that takes away some first-round picks to trade, I was definitely in for that. But I think that's something they have to look into the offseason, because they have to pick a direction. They can't keep. I think there'll be status quo. They're going to stay stagnant, as is. But I don't know if OG is the answer. But I mean, some teams going to be happy with OG, and I think if you're a Dallas, for instance, like, I don't know if they probably don't have the assets right now, but they should be looking into OG for sure. I think that would be great great type of fit with Luka. A player like that, I think, is what Luka needs. Those type of players. So for the Knicks, I think they're going to stay put. I think they
Okay.
value guys like Quentin Grimes unless it's a player that they feel like can really change change their fortune and put them in that top four. I just don't see that per player available. I mean, all we're really hearing is the guys like OG Anunoby and maybe Buddy Hields and all those type of players and good players, but I don't think those are players that are going to put us over the top. And I think that's what they should be looking for, try to get that guy. But I don't see that happening. I think they stay put. And yeah, I think that's the Knicks plan. They're going to stay put because it seems like they value a lot of their young guys. So I think they stay put at the deadline.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think that's what they should do. I understand people want to get super excited about a team after a win streak, but it's all about being measured, and still trying to look at the bigger picture of it all. And the fact of the matter is, the Knicks just still aren't quote unquote true title contenders. They're not true Eastern Conference contenders, especially with how good, as we mentioned, the top four teams in the East. Like there's a big gap between them and the middle to bottom. There's a massive gap between them and the middle of the Eastern Conference. That's a really, really good top four. That'll be really hard to crack and get into. But you should still. But Knicks fans should still be. Yeah, I'm not a part of the Knicks fandom, but as someone from the outside looking in, y'all should still be very happy with what you've seen over the last 8 games. Like you've seen genuine fight. You've shown true defensive intensity, which people question how good the Knicks could be defensively with Jalen Brunson as your point guard, like as one of your perimeter defenders. But they've figured out lineups to get quickly. Grimes, they've staggered RJ Barrett minutes. They put, like you said, Robinson's been fantastic as a rim protector. I mean, you should still be very happy with what you're seeing from the Knicks of the past few games for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, inserting Grimes and McBride has definitely boosted that defense for sure. So, some good things to look, in these last, in this last win streak for sure. And I think they'll stay put, but I think desperately needed this win streak because before that it looked like a fire sale was coming along. So it's definitely been better and tough loss yesterday against Toronto, but bounce back against Chicago Friday and see how that goes. But what other trades? Are there any trades that you want to see that you think will happen? Give me some trade idea that you got cooking up.
Well, I mean, I was looking at trying to get OG to your Knicks, trying to see what it would take. And my biggest issue for y'all was just the young talent in terms of to making up that value for OG. It's kind of hard to find. You have to scrap together, like maybe, Cam Reddish. You'd have to trade Quentin Grimes. You may even have to trade Obi Toppin. And then you'd have to get rid of the Fournier contract. And then you would get some interesting pieces back from Toronto. Otto Porter Jr., Kem Birch, OG, and Precious Achiuwa to match the salaries. Knicks would have to throw in first-round picks because Toronto Masai is going to want first-round picks. But I was like, that's a little too rich from my blood. So I struggled getting OG to your Knicks. Yeah, I struggled doing that for sure. But something from my Grizzlies that I'm interested in because as I talked about before, it's like, will the Grizzlies be active in the next couple of months leading up to the trade deadline because they are contenders, but they still, whether or not they're vaulted into the upper echelon of NBA contenders, because Milwaukee, Boston, Cleveland, and then I think Memphis is fourth of those championship contending teams. But to vault themselves to legitimate number one, legitimate number two, close to number one, do they have to make another move? Who knows? But it all depends on how the Grizzlies value their young guys. David Roddy, Jake LaRavia, obviously Zaire Williams. They have Danny Green's $10 million contract. Excuse me. That'll be expiring after this year. So that's a good movable contract. But then who would they go for? Myles Turner has been an interesting name to float out there. And I think I think if you can get Myles Turner to pair up with Jaren Jackson Jr. to allow more floor spacing for for John Morant, and once Desmond Bane's healthy, you have two fantastic rim protectors. You have a good role man in Myles Turner who can also spread the floor. Obviously, Jaren Jackson Jr. similar thing, good role man who can spread the floor and also protect the rim on the defensive side. I think Jaren's more switchable than Myles Turner, so you probably have
Yeah.
Myles still play the five. But defensively, that would work, and offensively, it provides a little more spacing for John Morant. So I like this trade. Roddy, Laravia, you'd have to probably put in Zier and Danny Green's contract for Chris Duarte, which is a good young player for the Pacers who can also shoot the three, and
Mhm.
Myles Turner. Throw in, I think I had, let's see how many picks I had. 2023 first round pick, which probably it'll be bad. Like it'll be a late first round pick. The Grizzlies are very good. So there's not a ton of value there. 2025 first round pick, top 8 protected, and a 2023 second round pick. So maybe Indiana would want maybe another second round pick or maybe protected first round pick. Who knows? But I think it's possible. Like this could get Memphis something that would really help vault them into another level. But it all depends on if they how much they value their young dudes, because they love Z, they love Laravia, they love Roddy. Big body Roddy. Memphis loves David Roddy. I'm still trying to get there. I've had people tweeting me saying, "Oh, how do you feel about David Roddy now?" I'm like, hold on a second. Like it's been like he's
Yeah,
had
yeah.
a few. Let's wait a second. I'm still not fully
Pump
sold,
the brakes.
but
Pump the
yeah,
brakes.
let's relax. Let's relax a little bit. But that's something I was interested in. What do you think?
Yeah, no, that's a good move for you guys. That like I said, Myles Turner provides a stretch big, like I said, and allows you to move around because he's so fluid and all that, and he could block shots too. And you add that with Triple J. I mean that's a nice 1-2. Like, that's tough. That's
Yeah,
tough
that's
for
tough.
sure. That's tough for
Yeah,
sure. And if you can get Duarte in that somehow, that'd be even better. You had just a sharpshooter out there, and all that does is when Ja collapses the defense, he kicks it out to Duarte and Bane, and you got some shooters out there. And I think that's definitely a very interesting move. Very interesting move I could see from Memphis for sure. And that's something no, I like that move. I think that's definitely a
cool.
plus move for you guys for sure. And but there's going to be interesting to see what teams is Portland going to try to be the buyers at the deadline? Utah teams like that. Like, are they going to buy Minnesota? What Dallas does is going to be interesting because right now what they're the 10th seed right now. I think Dallas is or ninth seed.
Yeah, I
So
think
I think they need to make a move.
nine.
But what move do they make? So that's going to be interesting to see. Atlanta too is another team. I forgot to even mention Atlanta. Like, what does Atlanta
Yeah,
do? Because it's been a mess for them. I mean, and it's not as bad as it looks from the like. There's 500, but you would think they were like really dead in the water. But a lot of things going on. We're doing Trey Young and all that, and John Collins situation. With John Collins on the move, you hear Brooklyn may be interested in John Collins and maybe something like Joe Harris and some picks, and swap for John Collins because they could use some more athleticism,
yeah,
for sure and all that. So maybe have to trade like a Cam Thomas or something like that, also which would I think Cam Thomas has unlocked potential, and I don't know if it's going to be there in Brooklyn, or they may, maybe they try to keep him because Kyrie isn't probably going to be there next year. So that could be someone, maybe their guard the future, but I don't know, something like that. But there's going to be an interesting deadline. It's going to be a very interesting deadline,
yeah,
for sure. And what teams are going to try to buy and what teams are maybe trying to sell. Cause, Kuzma is a hot
Kuzma.
commodity
Yeah,
too. Kuzma, even heard some Porzingis rumors too, but
mm-hmm.
Kuzma seems like because his contract is not steep, what he does, what they do with him, what does Washington do, period, because they're kind of middle of the pack. So it's gonna be interesting to see what teams do
Yeah.
coming up at the deadline and all that
I,
for
I
sure.
think the Portland thing's interesting because they have the picks. They have Shaden Sharp, and who's a top. I think was drafted fifth, sixth. I
He
can't
was
remember
sick.
off
He
the
was
top of
like
my
top
head.
8. He was top 8.
Yeah, he was definitely top 8. So high draft pick, young dude. He's only 19. Who, like you said, showed flashes of being a really good NBA player just in his rookie year. I mean, that's an interesting team to try and maybe again try and get OG. OG's probably the big fish out there that teams are really trying to go for. So if Portland is really, like I said, if they choose to try and contend, they've been needing perimeter defenders for like years, forever, next to Dame and but then CJ, but now Simons. So you can maybe throw in Shaden Sharp, Josh Hart, who's another good player, and they have the picks to try and get OG, and that way for Toronto, they add a top 8 pick. They still have Josh Hart, who's a good player and a really movable contract who has value. So it could kind of, how to say this properly, open the floodgates for Toronto to potentially try and move more guys, because Josh Hart is it's a really good contract, $12.9 million for 2 years. That's a great deal, and he's a good player that teams would like to have. So that's a movable guy that Toronto could include to try and again get draft equity, or try and figure something out for them moving forward. But yeah, Portland's an interesting team to look at, especially where they're at in the standings.
Yeah, definitely for sure. So it's gonna be interesting to see what they do at the deadline. But all right, let's go quick and as